welcome back to another episode of Encourage, Build, Grow. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and this is a special episode today. Today, I wanted to just talk about Thanksgiving and being thankful. And, you know, this episode comes out, or rather this show comes out every Thursday. And being that this particular Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving, I thought I would do a show to talk about how thankful I am for everyone and how much I appreciate all of my listeners, all of the participants that have been on this podcast, and just everyone that has encouraged me as I take on this journey and as I've started Encourage, Build, Grow. I'm so thankful for everybody that's in my life and that has been a blessing to me in so many different ways. And so I just thought, well, wouldn't it be appropriate just to have an episode just to say thanks? So that's what this episode is. So this is not like your normal episodes of Encourage, Build, Grow. We have had some doozies in the past few weeks. We've had Ellen Bensky on the show. We've had Ozzie Nelson on the show. We've had Kara Clower on the show. Some people you know, some people you may not know. And I got to tell you, folks, the future is just as bright when you see the list of people that we're going to have on the show in the coming weeks and in 2020. So I'm really excited about that. But without further ado, I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everyone that has supported everything that I've done as I've stepped out to start Encourage, Build, Grow the company, but more importantly, Encourage, Build, Grow the podcast, which I found is really touching people on a lot of levels. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm certainly appreciative of all the people that have already been on the show and those that will come on in the future. So I wanted to just kind of go down the list of the people that I'm thankful for. Dwayne Grohl is one of them. He's a president of his design firm and just an outstanding guy and really doing some amazing things in his organization. And Dwayne was just kind enough to be one of my first guests on the podcast and shared a lot of great information about all that they're doing at Environmental Design Group and all the great things that are happening in the Midwest for design firms. And that certainly is a great episode to listen to. I want to thank Sean Smith. Sean is with Big Red Dog Now, WGI. Sean is a really, really good guy. He's also a military man and certainly thankful for his service to this country. But I even more so just the simple fact that he's just a good dude. And Sean took time to be on my original podcast that I used to do previously before I started this one. And then he also came on this one and then told me that I was one of the inspirations for him getting his own podcast started for his company there at WGI. Prior to that, it was Big Red Dog. And so, Sean, I'm really thankful for you and all the great information and insight that you shared on your podcast. I also want to give a big shout out to Kara Clower from LACO. LACO is my firm that I enjoy visiting when I'm on the West Coast, rather up north on the West Coast. I was going to say the Northwest, but actually I meant the West Coast, the Northwest Coast, which is the Bay Area, and then everything north of that all the way up to Eureka. And LACO has several locations in Santa Rosa and Eureka and a few other places. And they were kind enough to be a part of my experience in the design industry over the past few years. And I always like to give a shout out for LACO. I wear their hat everywhere I go. And I always mark off on social media, hashtag in my LACO hat, because that firm means a lot to me. Mike Nelson and Kara and the rest of those folks there are really doing some amazing things. And I'm thankful, most importantly, for Kara's time on the podcast and just her willingness to share and be transparent about what it's like being in a design firm when you're not a prototypical designer, an engineer, or an architect. And she was just really candid with us and really shared some great feedback and some essential wisdom for those that want to be leaders within their organizations, even if they don't have the traditional background of an engineer or an architect or a planner or environmental consultant. There's still so many ways that you can add to the equation in your design firm. So don't delay, or don't be, what's the best way to put it? Don't be discouraged if you aren't a quote unquote licensed professional. That means nothing because you can still make a difference. And people like Kara and people like Ellen Bensky and people like Ozzie Nelson are doing great things in the design industry, and they are not licensed. So that's a great episode. That's episode 5, as a matter of fact. And then June Jewell, she knows the AEC industry inside and out. June is a jewel, and she is great to be around. She has a lot of advice and guidance about how to find that lost money in your organization, find areas of waste, figure out how you can save. In every corner of your organization or company, there are ways for you to save and to be able to utilize that money for the greater good of the organization. And June is certainly that person to do it. And I was really thankful to have her on the show. Then I had a young man that I think is going to be ruling the world in one day soon. I don't know when, but Charlie Hager he's a fine human being, but he's an outstanding young man. He certainly represents millennials well, and he represents what millennials mean to the design industry like nobody else. And Charlie works at LJA, which is a firm that is near and dear to my heart. And I just really enjoyed the time that I spent with Charlie talking a little bit about everything in terms of what it looks like for those that are getting into the design industry in this day and age. It's changed a lot. This is not your daddy's design industry. It's Charlie's design industry. And it's going to continue to change and evolve as millennials continue to grow in positions of leadership. As soon as Generation Z starts to truly come on the scene, this is like their second year in the workforce. Those that have already graduated that are from Gen Z, and then that alpha generation that's coming up after them. How do we prepare for them? And I got to tell you, leaders, if you're a firm leader in a design firm in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, and you're not thinking about how you're going to change your work environment, how you're going to prepare it to receive these younger people that just think differently than we do. And I'm including myself in that because I'm Gen X, but I still get it. These kids iterate. They do things so much faster than we do. And so I just want to encourage you to listen to that episode with Charlie, because he provides a lot of insight that firm leaders need to have for how they handle millennials and how they certainly will handle Generation Z in the next coming years. Dan Oblinger is a great friend. He is a hostage negotiator, and I'm thankful for Dan because he has taught me more about listening than I would ever care to know. And if nothing else, I count myself a better listener because of Dan. That, more than anything else, is worth the price of admission. And Dan is just a supremely nice guy. That episode is episode number 8 of Encourage, Build, Grow, and I really encourage you to check it out and hear what Dan has to share. Also thankful for Bart Gilbreth. Bart is an engineer. He leads from the heart, as the title said of that particular episode, but Bart is he's just a really good guy. He is an electrical engineer with Garver, which is a supremely successful design firm based out of Little Rock. They just celebrated their centennial not too long ago, and Bart is doing some great things working with airports all over the country. And just his style of leadership is very cool, calm, and collected. And I've picked up a lot from how he approaches things, and just what his peers say about him just makes what he does even all that more impressive. So I'm thankful for Bart. I also want a big shout out to my buddy Will Schneer. Will Schneer has probably been on more podcast episodes that I have done for the design industry than anybody else. Will is just a stand-up guy. He is a genius when it comes to running a business, and he proved that with Big Red Dog, which took our industry by storm, kind of turned it on its ears down in the Texas marketplace, Austin to be specific, and then beyond. And then eventually was acquired by Wampman Group, or WGI. And now Will is the director of marketing for WGI. He's traveling back and forth to Florida, doing some great things for WGI. Yet he's taken all that he learned in his time at Big Red Dog to WGI and allowing them to be an even more entrepreneurial firm from the way that they market and the way that they do things. And he's constantly learning and evolving, and I'm very appreciative of Will. I also want to give a big shout out to Jeff Collins. Jeff Collins is with Hoyle and Tanner, based up in New Hampshire. And he and I met it was kind of weird how we met, but that's why I say, you never know when you're going to meet somebody that's going to come into your life and really make a difference. And I appreciate Jeff because he was a fan of my previous podcast that I used to do at Zwei Group. And then he said, you know what? He listened to another podcast that I did, decided to come and visit me down in Northwest Arkansas, he and his beautiful wife. And I took him to a Rotary meeting with me, and I took him and showed him around town a little bit. And then he came on the podcast and really shared some interesting ideas about the fact that he's constantly learning, and he's been around the block a little bit. He's been an engineer for quite some time, but he's still learning. And there's always something new for him to learn. And I really appreciated that lesson that he taught us on that particular episode of Encourage, Build, Grow. It was really a good one. And I'll make sure that you guys have that information. And then there was the great Ozzie Nelson from Nelson. And Ozzie is just the man. He's been around for years. I knew him when I first got into the industry in the 90s. And he impressed me then, and I'm even more impressed now. Again, another stand-up person. I guess there's something about individuals who you can trust and whose word is their bond from a leadership perspective. You recognize the difference that they're able to make in their organizations because of how they treat people, how they react to situations, and how they can overcome challenges that we all deal with, and do it with such a level of grace and dignity. And so Ozzie is just a terrific guy. And he basically took what his dad did and just grew it to levels that I don't think anybody, even Ozzie, thought were even possible 15, 20 years ago. And he continues to grow it. And Nelson's now over 1,200 people. And I'm just thankful for Ozzie. And just he encourages me every day. Every time I get to look up and see what he's doing and witness a new accomplishment that he has achieved or some message that he's sharing with his team, it's just great to be around people like that. And then finally, the last episode that we've done prior to this episode, which would be actually, no, it's not the last episode. Tiffany Olson is the Chief Marketing Officer or Director of Marketing with ISG. ISG is a great company. Chad Serpernant, Lynn Bruns, and the rest of the team there at ISG are doing some great things in the design industry. They're based in Minnesota, not Minneapolis, but they're based in Mankato. They've got an office in Minneapolis. They also have an office in South Dakota. They've got an office in Wisconsin, a couple of offices in Wisconsin, Green Bay, and La Crosse. And they also have an office in down in Iowa. So they're doing some great things in the upper Midwest. They're in ESOP. And, I was really thankful for Tiffany to come on, and she shared a lot of insight and wisdom about what it's like to market in the type of firm that they're in, where they operate in several verticals, including architecture and engineering and planning. And so they've got a lot going on, and they're just consistently growing and doing some good things. So her message certainly did not fall on deaf ears, and it was very impactful to me. And I'm just thankful for Tiffany, and I'm also thankful just for her friendship and the kind text messages and emails that she sends from time to time. So thank you for that. And then finally, last week's episode, we had Ellen Bensky on. I got to say, folks, those our cousins from the north, and I'm kind of being funny, but Ellen's from Toronto. She's not from there. She's actually an American, but she lives in Canada, and she, for the last 30 years, has basically helped to grow Turner Fleischer Architects based there in Toronto. And she's in high demand. She is a leader's leader, and she really knows what the heck she's doing. And the other thing I like about Ellen is that her story is a non-traditional one of rising through the ranks of a design firm without a traditional design background, like Kara Clower and like others, Ozzie Nelson, that have been able to do it at a high level and really make a difference in their organization. And man, to hear Ellen tell her story, as I like to say, her superhero origin story of how she got started and what she did, the thing that really struck me was that even when she first came to Turner Fleischer and sat down with the founder of the company, he asked her to do something he asked her basically if she could get this accounting program off the ground. It was some software. She didn't know the front from the back of this software. But you know what she said? She said, yep. And she went and figured it out. And this was before Google. This was before YouTube. Nowadays, there's no excuse. If somebody asks you to do something, just say, yep, I'll figure it out, because you can. I mean, there is no shortage of information and data out there. And there's also no shortage of people out there that will help you through the process. So I just want to encourage you, when you're faced with an obstacle and you don't think you can overcome it, or if somebody asks you to do something and it's outside of your wheelhouse, but you know it can help the organization, say yes and then figure it out. Don't say, well, I'm not sure, I don't think I can do it, or anything like that. Just say yes and then figure it out. Like I always tell people, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. If you want something, you've got to go after it. If you want to put yourself in a position to be successful in the design industry space, or just in life in general, you've got to put yourself out there. It's uncomfortable. I hate it sometimes. I mean, even doing these podcasts, I know sometimes everybody says I sound like a natural. Oh, you're so good at it. Well, it's because I do it all the time. I hit record even when I don't want to hit record. So take that in for what it's worth. Sometimes you got to design even when you don't want to design. Sometimes you have to lead even when you don't want to lead. So let that be an encouragement to you to keep going. Don't keep fighting the good fight. Keep moving forward. Don't take no for an answer. And always open your mouth and let people know when you can help them and figure it out from there. My goal with this podcast is to encourage, to build, and to grow as many solid leaders with communication abilities and the ability to practice self-care and take care of themselves, right? Because drowning men can't give swimming lessons, or nor can drowning women for that matter. So you have to take care of yourself. But my motive with all this is to help you be the best that you can be. And that's what I'm going to do through all the different initiatives that I'm doing here at Encourage, Build, Grow. We're rolling out some new programs. I just started up a new company to do AEC job board, because one of the challenges that we see every design firm struggling with is just the simple fact that they need to find good people, and we're going to help them do that. And I've got a lot of programs and plans in place to do that in 2020, and I can't wait to share more of that with you. So in the next couple of weeks, I've got a couple of really good episodes of Encourage, Build, Grow coming up. I'll have a special Christmas episode, and then we're going to probably take a 1-week break that week between Christmas and New Year's, and we might just do a best of episode on that day, that last Thursday of the month of December. And then we're going to come out of the gate smoking the first Thursday in January with a brand new episode. And I'm going to tell you folks, 2020, hold on to your seats, because it's going to be a wild ride, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to make some things happen. Never mind that we've got a presidential election here in the United States. I want you to focus on getting yourself better, because if you can't help the country, you can't help your local community if you're not in tip-top shape. And what I mean by that is, as a leader, as an individual that can bring your 2 cents to the table and help your organization grow collectively. It takes everybody to be part of it. Don't just look to your boss in the corner office and just say, well, they'll figure it out. He or she will figure it out. Be a part of the solution. Because if you're part of the solution, listen, they can't ever get rid of you if you're part of the solution, right? Because you're doing it. The only people that they ever get rid of, in most cases, I know sometimes people just have to cut labor from time to time for one reason or another. And, sometimes good people do get cut. But in most cases, if you're good, you're not going anywhere. And remember, the advice that I've always given every leader whenever I've done a training or anything else is that as a leader, your goal is to work yourself out of a job. Not that you're going to get fired, but that you're going to create an opportunity for those that come behind you to step into what you're doing so that you can then go on and do something even greater. So that's all I have for you today. I really wish you and yours, if you're celebrating Thanksgiving in the U.S., an amazing Thanksgiving today, Thursday. And I just hope you have a great time. And I look forward to seeing you next week as we close out 2019. And I can't believe we get ready for a new decade at the end of this year. It's amazing. Time is flying. Folks, don't blink because you might just miss it. That's it for me today. I really appreciate you. I love and care about you guys tremendously. When I say love, I mean it. I'm not just saying that just to throw the word out there. I legitimately care and love for everyone that listens to this podcast, that sends me little shout outs and little notes and little advice to keep it going and how much they like it. That this is fuel for me. And you guys just don't know how much I appreciate you. And it should go without saying that if there's ever anything that I can ever do for anyone that's listening to this podcast, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll never say no. I may say not right now, or I might say, let me figure something out, but we'll work it out. My goal is to help as many people as I can help. And I'm using this form of a podcast. I'm using a lot of other things, the blog, and just me going out and meeting with firms to help as many design firms as I can create better leaders, better communicators, and ultimately better people. That's it. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm Randy Wilburn, and I'm signing out. Cue the music now. We'll see you next week. Peace.